Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are looking at a story that is, well, it's one part viral mayhem and one part a masterclass in high-stakes business.
It really is. We're diving into the world of Maksud Agajani, who most people know as TraxNYC.
And specifically, we're focusing on this explosive viral event. I think it got something like 73 million views.
Oh, at least. And what's so fascinating is what that chaos really tells us about the brutal reality of doing business in the New York Diamond District.
Our sources here are just incredible. You have this detailed account of a physical, a street fight right next to TraxNYC's incredibly disciplined, almost cold business philosophy.
Yeah. And our mission today is really to distill the lessons from that. I mean, how does a mogul like him blend that kind of public aggression with a really strict code of honesty, especially in an industry that, well, it often thrives on the exact opposite.
So the thing that kicked this whole thing off for us was that video. It just went nuclear.
It really did.
For anyone who missed it, it shows TraxNYC confronting a rival jeweler, Georgia Kai, and it just escalates so fast. I mean, spitting, an alleged strangulation with a chain.
And then the police show up, arrests are made. It was pure pandemonium.
But the context for that clip is so important because the chaos, it's all rooted in fraud.
Absolutely. The Akai brothers, they weren't just competitors. They were actively impersonating his business. A customer thought he was buying from TraxNYC.
Right, but he wasn't.
Not at all. And he was sold a bracelet advertised as 14-karat gold that turned out to be, 10-karat when it was tested.
Okay, let's unpack that for a second. I mean, 14K versus 10K. Why is that such a huge deal?
Oh, it's everything. It's the difference between legitimate high-end jewelry and a pure scam.
This is not a small error.
Not in the slightest. 10K gold has way less actual gold in it than 14K, so it's cheaper to make, it's more brittle, and the seller is just pocketing that difference. It's an outright betrayal.
So TraxNYC finds out about this on New Year's Eve, December 31st. And he doesn't wait. He steps in, he makes the customer whole by giving him a $22,000 refund.
Which is actually more than the guy paid. He paid $21,000.
Right, $1,000 more.
Yeah.
And then he immediately goes on the warpath.
Yeah.
That feels emotional. Was that a calculated move or just pure anger?
I think the sources show it's a bit of both, but it's mostly about defending the brand. In the Diamond District, your reputation is your currency. Letting a fraudulent sale attached to your name stand for even a day, that could be catastrophic. The $22,000 was just the cost of protecting the millions his reputation is built on.
And the aggression that followed was clearly more personal.
Oh, yeah.
Which brings us to the conflict itself. This wasn't some one-off thing. Our sources say this feud with Georgia Kai and his brother Freddie had been building for, 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, and the backstory here is just audacious. The Akai brothers had actually bought 50% ownership in the Co-op Exchange building where TraxNYC is a major tenant.
So they were basically his landlord.
In a way, yes. But instead of managing the property, they set up a booth across the street, pretending to be just simple renters, to poach the customers his massive storefront was drawing in.
That is next level. They were using their insider status to be, like you said, financial parasites.
Exactly. So when TraxNYC confirmed the fraud, that same day, New Year's Eve, he walks into their booth and just trashes their scales and equipment.
Right there on the spot.
He destroyed their means of doing business. And that's what set the stage for the physical fight 2 days later on January 2nd.
Okay, so the rivals called the police about the damaged booth.
They did, but the NYPD saw it as a civil matter, a property dispute. So when TraxNYC came back 2 days later, that's when it all exploded. Georgia Kai spits in his face.
Wow.
And his brother Freddie tries to strangle him with his own chain.
That is just extreme. But here's the critical part. According to what we've seen, TraxNYC walked away with all the leverage.
Precisely. Because he had physical marks, bruises, marks around his neck, and the NYPD requires that to prosecute an assault charge.
So the police made their move.
They did. The two brothers, George and Freddie, and their father, they were all arrested, walked out in handcuffs, facing criminal assault charges. TraxNYC was never detained.
Never detained. And this is where the business lesson just blows up. He gets choked, but he walks away with what he calls a year's worth of marketing in a weekend.
It's incredible. 320 million views in a month. A massive boost to his business.
So we have to ask, was the PR the goal? Or was it just this accidental, massive bonus?
It seems like it was the bonus, but it really highlights his strategy. He operates in public. When chaos happens, he turns it into content immediately. He controls the narrative.
While his rivals were being sneaky.
Right. They chose the sneaky route, and when they got exposed, they lost everything. Their freedom, their business, their reputation. And now Trax is seeking restitution with a major attorney, Bradford Cohen, and he's saying any money he gets is going to his family, his staff, and charity.
It's a perfect example of turning a massive liability into a brand asset.
It really is. He reinforces his image as the guy defending honesty in a dirty business.
So that brutal ecosystem, the one he calls a place for vultures and parasites, what does that actually look like on a day-to-day basis?
Well, that language really reflects the economics of it. TraxNYC is the anchor tenant. He pays close to $60,000 a month in rent for his prime window and mezzanine space.
$60,000 a month.
Yeah, and that's what draws customers from all over the world. The parasites, the competitors like the Akais, they pay maybe $4,000 or $5,000 a month for a tiny booth and just live off the spillover traffic his investment generates.
So they are literally profiting from his marketing budget while trying to undercut him.
Exactly. And it's such a contrast to how the Diamond District was founded. You know, it was largely a Jewish community built on an unwritten code of trust.
Right, where deals were done on a handshake.
Multi-million-dollar deals with no paperwork because your reputation was everything. The one rule was, don't steal like a petty thief.
But the sources also say that even with that code, internal conflict was standard. Brothers turning on each other, lying, cheating. It was all about leverage.
That's the duality. The industry needs trust to even function, but it's full of what Trax calls ruthless people. It's the strange place where you need deep personal trust, but at the same time, he expresses this deep distrust in bigger institutions.
Like the government, the U.S. dollar itself.
Yeah, he cites things like the constant printing of money. It suggests that in this world built on reputation, there's a huge pull toward tangible assets, like gold, as the only real safe harbor.
And Trax's claim is that he's changing that whole game by just being an honest person. He says the old guard, the scumbags, they want him to fail because his success proves their entire philosophy is wrong.
And that's his brand. He keeps the aggression you need to survive there, but he pairs it with radical transparency. And to get how he did that, you have to look at his personal story.
He came to America in 1993 from Baku, Azerbaijan, like Suda Agajani, and his background is really unique.
It is. He was raised Jewish, but his father was Muslim and a former homicide detective, which kind of reflects the more secular culture of the old Soviet Union.
And he says he rejects all those ethnic and religious labels, calls them lines on a map.
Right, and that probably helped him navigate the intense multicultural world of the Diamond District without getting caught up in traditional biases.
So he starts his business in 2004. He's just 18 years old, buying stuff on Canal Street and flipping it on eBay. But he hit some big roadblocks early on.
He did. He says it was because of low self-esteem as an immigrant. He was ruining relationships, his prices were too low, he was totally focused on volume instead of profit.
The classic startup trap, doing a ton of work for almost no money.
Exactly, just chasing the next sale.
So what was the turning point, the aha moment that flipped his business model?
It was basically the Warren Buffett principle. Buffett looked at a failing company once and realized the answer wasn't to sell more, it was to sell less of the wrong stuff and charge more for the right stuff.
And how did that apply to jewelry?
Well, the industry loves quick, cheap sales. Trax learned to just cut the stuff that was causing problems, like those low-quality 10K gold chains that snap and lead to complaints and returns.
The headaches?
All the headaches. He cut those out and started increasing the prices on his high-quality pieces. The lesson was simple. Business is about profit margins and minimizing headaches. It's not about how many units you can move.
And now he's aiming for $40 million a year, with a target of $50 million by 2026. All driven by that principle.
And it completely shapes his inventory strategy, especially with things like high-end watches. He says the best way to get them isn't from dealers, it's directly from consumers.
Why is that?
Because consumers are often happy to sell a watch for, say, 75 or 80% of what they paid. But if that watch's market value has gone up, let's say a $100,000 watch is now worth $110,000, he can buy it for cheap, sell it fast for $95,000, and make an instant guaranteed profit.
Quick turnover, low risk. Smart.
Yeah, very smart.
Okay, so the final piece of this puzzle is celebrity and his brand, which again shows how disciplined he is about who he works with. He has a very clear idea of good clients versus bad clients.
He really does. He says the best clients are usually athletes. He calls them smart. They pay fast. He also mentioned Mr. Beast as, like, the perfect client.
Mr. Beast.
Yeah, wires money instantly. He apparently sold him a $100,000 gold medal for a video, got it back, and then sold it again for $130,000 after the price of gold went up.
That's a pure win-win. But on the other side of that, he's very clear about the rap culture client.
Unequivocally the worst, according to Tim. He calls them difficult, bad with money, and says they often show up with huge entourages where someone might be looking to steal something.
So he just avoids them.
Unless they're extremely disciplined, yeah. He mentioned Busta Rhymes and John Jones as exceptions, but otherwise he says the headache just isn't worth it. It kills the profit margin he works so hard to protect.
That filtering is so key. And beyond sales, it's about his media moves. He was in the Adam Sandler movie Uncut Gems, playing a jeweler. Was that just for fun?
No, that was absolutely a calculated brand move, a once-in-a-lifetime experience, he called it, that gave him visibility way beyond 47th Street. It gives him cultural credibility.
And his digital strategy is just as calculated, creating viral videos like melting gold scraps, which he calls valuetainment.
It's incredibly effective. The shorts are designed to educate and entertain, and they grab you from the first second. One of them hit 205 million views. This is what a modern jeweler has to be, part merchant, part media empire. You have to generate your own traffic.
So when you look back at everything, you see this core duality in the business. It demands this ruthless, aggressive focus on profit just to survive.
Right, but its entire foundation is built on this community-based trust that you need for these massive deals to even happen.
And TraxNYC's brand is the modern answer to that. He blends that aggressive public confrontation, which got him 320 million views, with these strict business principles.
It's just a masterclass in modern reputation management. You know, George Akai was sneaky and greedy and he lost everything. TraxNYC was public and aggressive and he gained everything.
A really fascinating lesson in how to not just survive, but actually make your chaos profitable.
And there is one final provocative thought that comes out of all this. We've talked about how the Diamond District runs on personal trust, on handshakes. Well, at the same time, people like Trax express this deep distrust in the U.S. dollar and government stability. He started when gold was maybe $350 an ounce, and he's seen where it's gone. So it raises a really important question for you, the listener. If high-stakes business is built on personal reputation, on tangible trust, are you better served putting your faith and your savings into tangible assets like gold and silver, or into traditional financial systems backed by institutions that, according to these accounts, consistently fail to deliver on their promises? It's a real question about where you choose to anchor your value.
Something to think about. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.